Hello, everybody. My name is Nanika Edwards. I am a poet, artist, author, and educator. I wear many different hats, and I haven't named all of them, but all of the above is true. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, and in this video, I will be analyzing a very short poem. It's a cross between a poem and a proverb, but a proverb could be a poem. For example, if you read the book of Proverbs in the Bible, which most Bible scholars believe it was written by King Solomon, the wisest man of his time, and after Jesus, the wisest man of all times, you would see that he has these very short, pithy sayings, very short, wise, witty sayings that encapsulate truth within poetic language. So he's got these interesting proverbs, and uh, after many years of writing poetry, I found myself writing similar proverbs. Obviously, not the same as Solomon, but you know, proverbs nonetheless. Some in standard English, some in Trini Creole dialect, or what we call dialect, Trini Creole English. So I have a short proverb for you today, and I'm going to read it for you, and then I'm going to analyze it. So I hope it's helpful for you. If for some reason, whether it's academically or just personally, you would like to learn how to analyze poetry, I think you might find this lesson useful. So I'm going to be doing this off the top of my head. And by the way, there seems to be a dog up right now barking ever so often. I don't think it realizes that it's past its bedtime. It's now 10 minutes to 11 on the 5th of February, 2024. That dog should already be sleeping. But anyway, nice to have company. So, let's get into the proverb. Okay, so as with the book of Proverbs, I actually don't have a title for this. I didn't really write it as a poem per se, even though it is a poem. It's a proverb, so I don't have a title for this. Although I guess you could give a title to a proverb if you wanted to. You could have fun giving it a title if you would like. After I explain what it's about, maybe you could decide what title you think you would give this if you had written it. Feel free to put it in the comments or even to send me an email if you would like. Okay, so let me read this. It's gossip. Sweet mango, juicy. Wipe mouth. Shirt stain. I didn't do nothing. Okay, I'm gonna read it again. And by the way, a poem could be in the how you read a poem doesn't have to be static. Sometimes people tell me when I see a poem, I just don't know how to read it. You just read it in whatever way makes sense. I mean, this poem I'm pretty sure, could be read in different ways. So let me read it again, and I'll read it in a slightly different way, okay? Gossip. Sweetest mango. Juicy. Mmm. Wipe mouth. Shirt stain. I didn't do nothing. All right, so that was slightly different, so it would have given a different feel. Of course, how we read a poem is important because it helps with the meaning. If we just read a poem flat, like with no expression, it will not convey the meaning in an effective way. Okay, the listener, our audience, will have more work to do. So it's really important to read a poem with expression, unless it's some tongue-in-cheek poem where it's meant, excuse me, where it's meant to be totally flat. Okay, so let's go through this line by line. Gossip. Okay, so we know what this is about, right? It's the first line tells us what this proverb is about or what this poem is about. It's about gossip. Okay, now what do you think? I'll ask you a question, okay? I'm not just going to explain everything. I'll give you a chance to get the cogwheels of your mind turning, okay? So gossip. What do you think I was trying to say through this proverb? What do you think? I'll give you some time to think about that, or maybe you could pause the video, okay, and take some time to think about that. Like, why do you think I wrote this poem or this proverb? I'll explain in a little while, but um, maybe I shouldn't say why do you think I wrote this, but what message do you think I'm trying to convey? Okay. By the way, have you ever been a gossiper, or have you ever been the target of gossip? Do people often come to you with gossip? How do you respond to gossip? I think our experience with gossip will probably color how we interpret this poem. Maybe, I don't know, possibly. Okay, because a poem can hit people in different ways depending on the life experiences that you've gone through. Okay, so gossip. This is about gossip. Sweetest mango. Okay, sweetest mango. So what am I saying? I'm saying that gossip is like something sweet. A lot of people see gossip as something sweet, something enjoyable, something to be enjoyed, right? Okay. And I'm comparing it to a fruit. I'm comparing it to a mango. I'm from Trinidad. I'm from the Caribbean. We love mangoes. A lot of us, most of us, like mangoes. There was a time when I did not like mangoes, but I've grown out of that. I like mangoes. I really like mangoes. And when you get a really nice sweet one or semi-sweet one, like little sour but sweet as well, I love mangoes like that. So gossip is like a mango, okay? It can um it can taste sweet. It can be sweet to our senses, right? It's sweet to talk gossip, to spread gossip, at least for some people it is, or else they wouldn't be doing it. And for others, they enjoy listening to gossip. Okay, the next line is juicy. So a mango is juicy, right? But gossip is also juicy. So what am I doing here? The word and the line, although it's not exactly a line, it's one line with one word, right? So yeah, I guess it's a line, one line with one word. The word juicy connects the second line to the first line, and it's using the mango as a metaphor for gossip. You know, now when you read the third line, it's really clear that the mango is a metaphor for gossip, that it's juicy, okay? And so, yes, when we hear information about somebody that ordinarily they would keep private, but that we are interested in, then that makes gossip juicy. Juicy meaning it's sweet and it's pleasurable to our senses, right? So it's juicy. You know what we mean when we say something's juicy, right? You know what we mean. You know what I mean. So for example, a lot of Hollywood stars have to duck paparazzi for this very reason, because there are people who feel that they are entitled to the private, personal information of these people who are, in their mind, they see them as public because they go to the cinema, they see them on the screen, and so on. But the paparazzi do not respect, a lot of times, they don't respect these people's privacy, okay? And for some of us, we're happy that they don't respect their privacy, because then we get juicy information about them that we would not ordinarily have. Okay, next line. Wipe mouth. What do I mean by wipe mouth? What do you think? You can pause the video, think about it, and then you can continue listening to my explanation. So, what do I mean by wipe mouth? By wipe mouth, okay, so this is a even though this is just 5 lines, it's very layered, quite layered for a 5 line proverb. But proverbs are like that. So, wipe mouth. Well, first of all, we're talking about a mango. We're saying that it's juicy. So typically, if you're literally eating a mango, when the juice is running down, you're running down your arm to your elbows, and it's running down your mouth and going to your chin, and all of that. You wipe the juice maybe with the back of your hand or with your shirt or something like that, right? So wipe mouth. But in this case, uh, mango and the juice of the mango is also connected to gossip. So by wipe mouth, there's also a deeper meaning beyond the mango. And what I mean is, when somebody has used their mouth to expose somebody, or um, to invade their privacy in a self-indulgent, selfish kind of way. They may, after they have said everything that they have to say, they would wipe their mouth and, metaphorically speaking, they would wipe their mouth. Now, the last line is going to explain why they wiped their mouth, okay? And it actually is connected to the book of Proverbs. So, if you're familiar with the book of Proverbs, you're going to understand why I said wipe mouth, okay? So, the next line is shirt stain. I'm going to explain the wipe mouth in a little while, but wipe mouth means, it really means I didn't do anything wrong. Like, I'm wiping my mouth, I'm wiping away the evidence of what I did, so that, I could say my hands are clean, or I didn't really do what I just did and it wasn't so bad. And that's what wipe mouth is about, okay? But I'll explain it further with the last line. And then we have shirt stain. Shirt stain. Okay, right? We from the Caribbean here in Trinidad, we know when you eat a mango and you're really enjoying it, you don't care too much unless you're wearing something really special from your wardrobe or something like that. We know that, the juice will be running on our clothes and that kind of thing, right? So shirt stain. Shirt stain. Now, I don't know if mango stains, right? But this, of course, is not about a literal shirt stain, although, like I said, the mango is a metaphor, so it's a picture of what gossip is like. And when we gossip, metaphorically speaking, it's like if we stain our soul, right? Shirt stain. Shirt stain. And by the way, If you have other responses that are different from what I'm explaining, but that makes sense, that's fine, because a poem will hit everybody in different ways. We may see different things. In the Bible, it says that we all have the mind of Christ. Speaking of believers and Christians, what it meant was, it's like, if you have a puzzle to put together, and like God wants us to have a picture of something, He will give different pieces of the puzzle to different people. No one person would have all the pieces of the puzzle. And then when everybody contributes their piece, we would all have a complete picture. So it's the same thing with poetry in a more general sense, just putting aside the spiritual consideration. So there is a kind of intangible relationship between a poet and his or her readers, because a poet will have specific thoughts in mind when they write something, not knowing that a reader who may be completely disconnected from them may connect with that poem on a very personal level and see things in the poem that are perfectly explainable, if I could use, if that's a word, perfectly explainable, perfectly rational, that the poet may not have intentionally put into the poem. So you may see other things in here that I may not have seen, and I may see other things later on down the road that I didn't intentionally put in here. That's just how poetry works, and that's just how truth works in general. Anyway, shirt stain. So, what am I saying here? I'm saying that gossip, even though it seems enjoyable, even though may seem harmless, it stains the soul. And the book of Proverbs speaks quite a bit about gossip. You could check, you could go online, maybe punch in Bible Gateway, find a Bible. And if you don't have a Bible of your own, just go to Bible Gateway or find a Bible app, download it to your phone, find the book of Proverbs, or maybe something like Bible Gateway might work better, because you can just type in a keyword and it will pull up the verses, right? Or you could just maybe type in Proverbs and gossip, or just gossip, and see what comes up, and make sure you get something from the book of Proverbs. But one of the things that the book of Proverbs says is that it says that gossip is like tasty morsels that go down into the belly. Now, they don't explain what they mean by down into the belly, but the feeling you get is that it's not something good. That's the feeling you get. But even if you think about what food does for us, like, okay, so we ingest something, let's say it's a tasty morsel, and what the body will do is process that food. Whatever is not helpful will be removed and will be exited from the body, and then the body will take up some of that, will absorb nutrients. But the body can also absorb things that are harmful. So maybe that's what Solomon meant when he wrote that particular proverb, that gossip is like something that we enjoy, we ingest, we take it in, we process it, we internalize it, we keep it, we remember it, and it's almost like it becomes a part of us, like it becomes a part of our system, maybe not our biological system, but our soul system, our system of thought, our system of being, who we are, right? So gossip is very it's something we have to be very careful with. And then we have the last line, I didn't do nothing. I didn't do anything. That's bad grammar, of course, but that's intentional, the bad grammar. Okay, I didn't do nothing. Of course, it's more emphatic if the grammar is not absolutely correct, and that's fine. Even you would notice in this poem or this proverb that Um, except for the last line. Each line is just a word or two words, like not a complete sentence, and that's fine. You can do that with poetry. And that's one thing that makes poetry different from prose. With prose, most times you need complete sentences, at least for most of your prose piece. But with poetry, you can write a poem exactly as I have it here. Okay, so I didn't do nothing. What do I mean by this? I'm alluding to a passage in the book of Proverbs in the Bible where Solomon is warning his son about the dangers of getting involved with a married woman, a wanton married woman, like explaining that she's somebody that he should avoid. And what he told his son is that an adulteress is like a woman who cheats on her husband. Well, I shouldn't say she's like, she is a woman who happily cheats on her husband, her loyal husband, most, in that case, and then, and also who ensnares other men, and she's essentially a predator. And you know what predators do? They pounce on prey and devour them, right? And so she does that. She devours her prey, and then she'll wipe her mouth and say, "I didn't do anything wrong." That's what that means. So I'm alluding to that. Now, the book of Proverbs doesn't really say that about gossip, but I'm just saying that sometimes people treat gossip in the same way. Like they'll gossip, they'll enjoy it, and then they'll say, "Well, yeah, that was enjoyable. I didn't do anything wrong." Now, let me go back over this again and pull up some other points, okay? Now, you may think, "But Nika, how do you just write proverbs like this?" Well, isn't that a thing for Solomon? Like, how come you doing that? Why? How come you can do that? Well, if you go on Facebook, for example, even Instagram, and you follow different people who write things like this, you'll see that a lot of people do this, right? Now, and you may think, "But how can I do that? Like, how can I write proverbs?" Well, I'll tell you how you can write proverbs. First of all, you need to be very observant. You need to, and also be a truth lover. If you don't love the truth, you won't be able to write proverbs, because proverbs have to be very honest. And if you not only don't love the truth, but if you live a lie, if you do things that are not pleasing to God, who is truth, um, you won't necessarily be able to write the best of proverbs. You need to be an observant person, like somebody who studies people and studies life, not in an intrusive way, but just in a kind of generally observant kind of way. And you also need to be a truth lover, I would say. So if you can marry those two things, plus have the linguistic skills to craft a proverb, even if it's as short as this one, then yes, you can write proverbs. In my case, it took me a while to start writing these, and when I did, I think it was just because the Holy Spirit started inspiring me. And then the more that I did it, the more natural that it became. And sometimes I could just do them on my own, but or sometimes together with the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. But anybody can do this once you've gained enough life experience. And it's a lot of fun to do, by the way. But anyway, so we have this proverb, and oh, by the way, there are other people I've seen doing this. For example, there's a gentleman that I follow on YouTube and Facebook by the name of Myron Golden. He does this effortlessly. He does this all the time. Like when he's speaking, he would just share a proverb that you can tell he's just saying off the top of his head. Sometimes he rhymes on the spot when he's doing this. So once you acquire, and by the way, he's in his senior years, and so obviously he's acquired a lot of experience, so he can make these generalizations that are very full of truth, because he's had enough time and experience to gather all of this wisdom, right? So, if you're young, I would say don't rush into this. You don't, I mean, you could if you want to, but, just take your time. You don't have to rush. Just learn how to be very observant. Anyway, so Myron Golden is somebody who comes up with a lot of proverbs, and I'm similar. Like I do like if I'm speaking with somebody, I could just make these interesting poetic generalizations on the spot, and I don't record all of them. There are a lot of times things go through my mind. If I don't have pen and paper on the spot, then I really just lose that creative moment, you know. Maybe I have to come up with a system to capture more of what goes through my mind. But I just think, okay, they're like shooting stars. Some falling stars you catch, and some of them just continue on into the um to the bottomless regions of the universe, and you never recapture them, right? So that's kind of what it's like. But anyway, let's go through this again, and I'm going to pull out some other things, and we'll really suck the juice out of this, because even though it's just 5 lines, you could literally, if you got together with a group of other people, you could literally talk about this for maybe an hour, hours on end. Okay, so let's go through this again. Gossip. Okay, so it's about gossip. Like I said, there's no title to this poem. Okay, so it's gossip, but the first line is almost like the title because it tells you what this is about. Gossip. Now, I could have easily removed the word gossip and just said sweetest mango, juicy, white mouse, shirt stain. I didn't do nothing, right? And then that could be talking about anything, right? That could be talking about anything, but I'm letting you know that I'm talking about gossip. So I include the word gossip at the top. Okay, because a lot of things that are not good to do are actually things that often people enjoy doing, right? So, anyway, we start with gossip, and I think that different people feel different. There are different feelings about gossip. There are some people who love gossip. They love spreading gossip and sharing gossip, and there are some people who do not like gossip. I fall into that camp. Maybe there's some people who are neutral, like it doesn't bother them one way or the other. But I think most people either really like gossip, or there are people who really dislike gossip. I really dislike gossip because I've often been on the rotten end of the gossip stick. And to be honest, both ends of the gossip stick are rotten, right? Because for the person who is gossiping, it defiles them. Whether they realize it or not, using their mouth in that way to invade somebody else's privacy uninvited in a malicious or frivolous way. Excuse me, sorry for the cough. I think I need to take a sip of water. Yeah, when we use our mouth in that way, it is defiling. Why do I say it's defiling? Because some people may say, but it's harmless, Nika. Even if you're like, what if it's true? Like, what if what you're saying is true? No, it's still harmful, especially if it's being done for frivolous reasons. Like if you're just sharing information about somebody that may be true, but that may be ultimately harmful to that person. Like you're not sharing the information to be helpful. You're really just sharing the information because it gives you a buzz. It makes you feel like, oh, you feel good to know something that other people don't know, that they're gonna really appreciate you for sharing. Um, it could be, well, you sharing the gossip because here's the case. A lot of people, when they're bored and they have nothing productive to do with their time, they will gossip. And by the way, men and women gossip. It's not just a female thing, although it is typically female, but men and women gossip, right? So, people who have all of these reasons for gossiping may think, well, yeah, it's not doing anybody any harm. I mean, it's just words, But keep in mind, Words are the very element embedded in all matter in this universe. Words are what created the universe, the earth, everything here. And where did these words come from? They came from God, who is a being of truth. And then he made us in his image and likeness, right? And God created everything with words. And he gave us the same ability. You know, the book of Proverbs says that life and death is in the power of the tongue. Our words have energy. They literally have energy. They're not neutral. They're not words are not lifeless. They have energy. They can produce life or they can produce death, right? So gossip is something that produces death. There is no gossip, absolutely none, that produces life. So I don't like gossip because I've like I said, I've been on the I've been targeted by people who have spread gossip about me, and it's not pleasant. It's really not a pleasant thing. It's not pleasant to be, first of all, to be exposed when people gossip about you and share information that you would ordinarily keep confidential, because I mean life is like a jungle, and our privacy, maintaining our privacy, is like being in a jungle and making sure that your skin is on you. Being exposed, being exposed is like being in a jungle and your fur has been removed, or your scales or your skin or what has been removed. That puts somebody in a very vulnerable position. So, and for all kinds of different reasons, it's wrong, right? So it's not a nice thing. And even before I became a target of gossip, it's not something that I indulged in. I don't like gossip. I think it's very what's the word I'm looking for? It's very superficial. To me, superficial people are people who like to gossip. Like people who don't value their time, people who aren't insightful enough to see that their words will have consequences for somebody that they themselves may never see, but that the other person who's the topic of their gossiping may experience. I just think people who gossip are frivolous. They're very frivolous and they're very silly. And they should really find something better to do with their time. That's how I feel about gossip. How do you feel about gossip? Okay, let's go to the next line. I could go on and on about gossip, but let's leave it right there. Sweetest mango. Okay, so for people who gossip, a lot of people think that gossiping is sweet, right? And by the way, I've read that for people who like to gossip, very often the bedrock reason why they like to gossip, the bedrock reason, right? There are many different reasons why somebody may like to gossip, but the bedrock reason is actually insecurity. A lot of insecure people like to gossip. You check anybody who likes to gossip, and I'm willing to bet you're going to find an insecure person. And maybe the rationale is, just took a sip of water. I guess the rationale is, if I feel insecure, if I feel insecure about myself, but if I feel insecure about myself, but I know something about somebody else that is not flattering, I may feel better about the things that make me feel bad about myself. And then I may think, okay, well, if I'm not thinking straight, then I may think, well, okay, they're worse off than I am, or something like that. And then I think, okay, I didn't even have to work on myself, right? I don't even need to work on myself. That's how somebody may reason. But a lot of insecure people do gossip. And it's their insecurity that makes the gossip so sweet. Okay. Juicy, right. So, yes, a lot of people find gossip juicy. why do we find gossip juicy? Why do you think people find gossip juicy? I'll tell you how I think about things like this. Like, I guess a lot of people find gossip juicy because you always feel special when you have some inside information that other people don't have. There's something about having information about somebody that somebody doesn't else have, that somebody else doesn't have, that makes us feel powerful or something. But me personally, I think that my generally I think that in most instances I just think, listen, their business is their business. It's none of my business. Why am I sticking my nose in somebody else's business? I have better things to do with my time. Even when I ask somebody, like if somebody doesn't look like they're doing okay, if they look like they're having a down day, and I just want to ask them, are you okay? Like if it's a total stranger, I don't know them, I might say, like say I'm going about shopping or something and I see somebody and they look a bit down, I say, are you okay? I mean, I might follow that up with, listen, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but are you okay? So just so I let people know I'm not trying to be nosy, but um I don't like, I really don't focus. I get no enjoyment out of sticking my nose in other people's business. I really, really don't. So, like for example, when the algorithms on YouTube or Facebook or whatever put gossipy stuff in front of me, and I don't know why they do because I clearly don't like that kind of stuff, but they keep pushing it. I usually bypass those things, right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be in the know about things. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we shouldn't be running down information about other people that had nothing to do with us. I mean, really, you know why the paparazzi is in business? Because there are lots of people who love gossip. And what are they doing? They're preying on the private information of people who are entitled to their privacy. I just find that's kind of pothoundish, is mongrelish behavior, right? That's how I see it. Okay, so for me, it's not juicy. I just think, um, yeah, I think about the consequences. And even if you think of like mango, this reminds me of like the Chinese word for consequence combines two words, after and fruit. After fruit, the fruit that comes after we do something. Like our actions are like seeds, words are like seeds. When they go into the ground, they will, the ground, the soil of somebody's life, somebody's heart, somebody's soul. They'll grow up and they'll produce some type of fruit. If it was a good seed, it'll produce good fruit. If it's a bad seed, it'll produce bad fruit. So gossip is like that, and it doesn't produce good fruit. It only produces bad fruit for everybody. It could produce bad fruit for an individual by exposing not just when think about it, when you expose somebody, you may not just be exposing them to neutral bystanders. You could be passing on sensitive information to people who may not have their best interest in mind, people who would take that information and fling it in their face just to make sure that, if the day started off with sunshine for them, that the person ends up with a day that's just pouring rain and, flashing lightning, metaphorically speaking. So I know that's been what I have experienced, right? And also with gossip, a lot of times we do not have the full picture. We do not have the full picture. People do not always have the best intentions when they spread gossip. Some gossip is completely false. And some gossip, even worse than that, is full of half truths, which is worse because then it's more believable, right? So, gossip plants bad seeds. Bad is not the best word there, but gossip plants. seeds, poisonous seeds. Gossip plants seeds that produce only death. Death at the end of the day. And when I say death, I mean metaphorically speaking. You know, when people are gossiping about you, feel like some part of you is dying on the inside. And whether the person gossiping realizes it or not, they're also introducing some form of death to themselves, right? So yeah, gossip is dangerous. And then we have wipe mouth. And I told you that wipe mouth is connected to the last line. I didn't do anything. I wipe my mouth. I may wipe away the evidence, or I may tell people, don't tell anybody I told you this. You wipe your mouth to make sure that nobody can connect back to you what was said, whatever wipe mouth means. You may wipe your mouth and then say, I didn't do anything wrong. Now, what does that mean? It means that somebody could do something bad, like gossip, know that they've done something bad deep in their heart, and sometimes not even so deep in your heart, upper levels of your heart, you've done something wrong. But you know that doing something wrong is wrong and makes you look bad, even in your own eyes. So what do? A lot of people would lie to themselves and say, I've done nothing wrong, because then they don't have to be accountable for what they've done. Also, they could then happily do it again. And they think they can continue feeling good about themselves. But the honest truth is, dishonesty is a sure and quick route to low self-esteem. The more we lie, the less good we feel about ourselves, because every time we look in the mirror, we know that we're looking at a liar. And nobody wants to be a liar most times, okay? So, wiping the mouth is actually a picture of self deception. I didn't do anything. I can think of maybe one person in my life. I don't know if there's more than one, but I can think of one whom I have confronted about this very thing. Maybe more than one, actually. I say, you like to gossip. And they immediately denied it. I do not like to gossip. Now, okay, now I'm going to take a little bunny trail. I did not mean for this to be so long, but um, I'm a talker. What can I say? So, in this person's case, in this person's case, they're a covert gossip. What do I mean by covert gossip? I mean, and I don't know if that's even a term, I'm just saying covert gossip. What do I mean by covert gossip? Do you know what I mean by covert gossip? Do you know people in your life who are covert gossips? A lot of women are covert gossips. Here's what a covert gossip does: a covert gossip will use concern very often as a guise, as a veil to gossip. Like they'll say, how is so and so doing? I hear such and such. Are they okay? But they're not really concerned about the person. They're just digging for information. They just want to get information, right? That's called a covert gossip. And or they may use concern to spew gossip. Like they'll say, I'm so concerned about such and such. Let me tell you what's going on with her. And then it becomes a gossip fest, right? Or sometimes people will ask you questions and pretend to be concerned about you just so they can dig and get you to give them some dirt. They want to hear that something's not right with you, right? Some people are like that. Let me tell you something. People are very slippery. I have no illusions about people and what people are capable of. A lot of people are very slippery. When people say life is a jungle, it really is a jungle, right? So a lot of people are slippery, and a lot of people have these very shrewd, sly ways of um, extracting information that they can then run off with and use to tell other people, blah, 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 such and such, So um, there are covert gossips. I'll tell you other kinds of covert gossips. Tell me if you're familiar with these. There are covert gossips who may dig for information by opening your mail. They're no different from paparazzi going through your garbage, right? These people will open your mail and then tell you it was a mistake, right? We all know that these people exist. There may be people who, you know, let's say, I know this is a common one. Let's say there may be people who live close to you. Let's say they're a neighbor or something, and they will water their plants when they hear you, I don't know, talking on the phone or something within earshot. And if they really want to pick up on what you're saying and listen in on the conversation, they may pretend to be watering their plants. Why? So they can get information that they can run off with and share with other people. You may literally have peeping toms who who literally get onto your property and listening on what you're saying and doing and things like that. Here's another form of gossip. You may have people who tap your phone, who may find ways to infiltrate your communication, whether it's your email or your phone conversations and so on. There are all kinds of different kinds of gossips, right? But a lot of gossips are covert gossips because most people know that gossip is bad. So most people will try to. Do you see how big of a topic gossip is? Look how long I've been talking, and this poem is just what, 6 lines long? I think I said five in the beginning, but it's six lines long. Imagine that, and I'm still talking. Gossip is a huge topic, right? Okay, so white mouth, right? So that's about self deception. I didn't do nothing. That's what people tell themselves. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong. Because people love to either avoid blame, shift blame, or share blame, right? I've seen all of those. Avoid blame, I didn't do nothing. Um, shift blame, I didn't do. Avoid blame, I didn't do nothing. Shift blame, it was a woman you gave me. Avoid share blame, or we both misunderstood, right? I've seen all of the above. So maybe there are others I haven't encountered yet. So if you like to gossip, I would encourage you, don't pretend. Be honest with yourself and just, you know, move in a different direction, march to the sound of a different beat, because you're really not helping yourself and you're not helping anybody else, right? Again, then shirt stain. What do I mean by shirt stain? This is probably the most important line in the poem. What do I mean by shirt stain? Well, in the Bible talks about garments of righteousness. Garments of righteousness. And the idea behind garments of righteousness is that for somebody who walks in friendship with Christ, with God, the Bible says that we become clothed with robes of righteousness. Robes of righteousness. You can think imperial, splendid clothing, right? You remember in the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve ate the fruit, the forbidden fruit, they suddenly realized that they were naked. Yeah, robes of righteousness are things that cover our spiritual nakedness. So they're not literal robes of righteousness, they're spiritual. And I think in the unseen realm, in a sense, they're tangible. So, there's a whole unseen realm that is very real where other beings exist, like God, angels, devils, people who have gone on to the great beyond, whether they're in heaven or in hell. And for people who are in heaven, I promise you, they can see every detail of our lives, I think, maybe, or most details, right? And so you could say that every life is like a fishbowl to, to the unseen realm, you know. We are observable, even in our private moments. So, with respect to the shirt stain and robes of righteousness, if we are not clothed, if we are not clothed spiritually, on some level, in some way, of course, I don't know exactly how, but on some level and in some way, to people looking on at us, we look like we're walking around in a nudist camp, right? Especially if all the people around us are wrong, people who don't live in a way that's pleasing to God. It's like being in a fishbowl and the fishbowl is a nudist camp. Or individually, we just look like somebody who's walking around with no clothes on, like we're streaking, like those streakers who like to run on football fields and so on, right? So, but that doesn't just pertain to gossip. That's just sin in general. What is sin? Sin means missing God's mark. Sometimes people say, well, my truth is my truth, your truth is your truth. What I consider good is what I consider good. But there is a set standard, and that's God's standard. And whether we believe in that standard or not doesn't really matter because the standard is fixed. It's like, what it's like? It's like number one is number one. You could say number one is number three. You could say number one is 15. You could say number one is 100. But the fact and the truth is one is one. One is one. One is one. You cannot you cannot say you could say one is 100. To me, one is 100 or one is 500. But just because you believe that does not make it true. And so God has a standard. And when we miss that standard, it's sin. And the only way to meet the standard is through His grace and by walking with Him faithfully, obeying Him, and studying His Word so that we can think more and more like Him by His grace, which is freely available in a sense through the salvation that Jesus offers because He died on the cross on Calvary for you and me. We have all nailed Him to that cross. And I say it's free to some extent, but nothing is really free, in the economy of God. Nothing is ever really free. Grace, of course, is free, but we pay a price. We have to pay a price to access righteousness and God's grace and so on by not to access His grace, but to access His righteousness by through obedience. Like obedience is the price that we pay, and sometimes it's not easy, but it's beautiful. It's the most beautiful experience in the universe. But this is why God says that the highway to hell is broad. I've heard Charles Stanley, a preacher that I excuse me, whose videos I have watched quite often. Charles Stanley, now deceased, but I remember one thing I remember him saying is that the broad highway is a path of self-indulgence. We all love to do it. I guess most people love, I wouldn't say I love, but most of us love to do what feels good to the flesh, right? And most people, therefore, find themselves on that broad highway. But there are a few, the Bible says there are just a few, who find the straight and narrow way that leads to everlasting life, right? And even though that road is narrow and challenging, limited in its scope because you can't do what you like, we have to do what is pleasing to God. By the way, which is very edifying and life-giving. It's a narrow road and it's more challenging because for the people on the broad highway, the devil tends to not give them much of a hard time because he has them right where he wants them. But for people on the straight and narrow, kind of like if you think of the story of Job, if you've never read it, you can check it out in the Bible. For people who are in the straight and narrow, who put God first, who are not self-indulgent spiritually speaking, who love God, who put God first and put themselves after God. Devil can't stand people like that. He'll give them a hard time. That's partly why the straight and narrow is straight and narrow and why it's full of obstacles. But it's a beautiful place to be. It's epic. It's a place of adventure. It's a place of having really sweet moments in our walk with God. It's a place of peace, like a place of inner peace, that peace that passes all understanding. It's a place of confidence and affirmation, knowing that God thinks well of us. It's a beautiful place, right? It's not easy, but it's beautiful. And part of the beauty is the fact that it's not easy. And when you walk that path and you realize, hey, doing okay, together with God, you know, we're going to finish this marathon, you know. There will be a laurel for me waiting at the end of this, and it's epic. It's epic. It's like somebody who enjoys physical activity. Somebody who gets a buzz out of doing these stamina testing, these intense challenges that are physically demanding, but they enjoy them. That's what the straight and narrow is like. So yeah, that's it. That's gossip. I really feel like there's a lot more I probably could have said that I haven't said. And look at this. This is just 6 lines, right? Not even full lines. Not even full lines. How many words is this? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 words, and I've been talking on and on. This is the beauty of poetry, the beauty of proverbs, the beauty of language. Um, I hope this was helpful. As you can see, by the way, I meant to say this. This is not a rhyming poem, but it's still a poem. Why is it still a poem? It's still a poem because there's a clear pattern. There's a clear pattern. Also, the sentences are not always complete. That's also kind of typical of some poetry. A lot of poetry, you may not have a complete sentence written with the words written in the necessarily written in the order that you would get with prose. With prose, we're talking about blocks of text, right? So we know this is a poem. And where's the pattern? The pattern is in the analogy between gossip and the fruit. Okay. Um, the second line, third line, fourth line, fifth line are directly connected to a fruit. And this is so even though it doesn't rhyme, um, in terms of meaning, there is a clear pattern. So, for example, when people talk about um, Hebrew poetry, like Hebrew poetry in the Old Testament, they would tell you that Bible poetry, when you read it in its original language, it doesn't rhyme sonorifically. It rhymes in terms of the meaning. There are parallels and juxtapositions and puns and things like that, but um, there isn't actually like rhyming where like you've got run, bun, come, mum, town, gown. It's not that kind of rhyming. So the rhyming is more, you could say, on a certain level in terms of the meaning and not so much sound, although the, when they use sound as how am I getting into this? This has nothing to do with anything. But if you geek out on these things like I do, like with Hebrew poetry, um, with Hebrew poetry, where sound is important, from what I see so far, it in poetry often has to do with pun, but not with actual rhyming, like the way we rhyme in a lot of our poetry and music and stuff like that. So what they do with the Psalms, I would love to know, because for us, Psalms are really not just poems, they're songs, right? So I'm not sure what what the Psalms would have sounded like as songs. I don't know if there was more like actually sonorific rhyming. I'm not sure, but of course for our songs they rhyme. But anyway, this proverb or poem does not rhyme, and that's fine. A poem does not have to rhyme to be a poem. So that's it. I hope this was helpful for you. I really didn't mean for this to be so long, but at least it was thorough. So I think it would have given you a good idea of how you can suck the juice. This time it's good juice, like good juice this time, good mango juice out of a poem. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. Please feel free to let me know in the comments your thoughts. If there's anything you think I missed, if there's anything you would add to this, if there's even anything you disagreed with, please feel free to let me know. Of course, respectfully, of course, feel free to let me know. And yeah, until the next time. And finally, I would just say I will probably share this on my Big People Talk YouTube channel simply because in explaining the last line and the wipe mouth line, I did have to mention something fairly adult. And so I would not put this on my Nanika Edwards channel. I hope this is useful and interesting for you. I hope it's helpful. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. And I would just like to thank you for taking the time to get this far into the video. And if you would like to see more videos like this or like other content that is just as edifying and just as educational, thank you for subscribing and thank you for sharing with other people. Until the next time, over and out.